So my preparation has changed throughout the years. Later on in life, I've been in my 40s now. I think it's very important that I time my training. So there's ways to be prepared for a tournament, being away from the mat. I think that for me, my age, for older competitors rather, masters. Yeah, the answer is not to be on the mat. It's literally impossible for us to be practicing jiu-jitsu every single day and doing like twice a day. So what's very important for me is I feel that I've discovered that I can be more mat ready by being away from the mat. So strength and conditioning is a very important thing that I've discovered for me later on in my years. So cardio, being limber, having really good body awareness and body movement. Kettlebells, getting away from that traditional just lifting heavy every single day, more towards maintaining just those joints and that ability to be on the mat on those days that matter. Does that make sense? So for me, it's like obviously we have a competition day here at the Academy, which is Thursdays. So I try to save my main day for a Thursday, but then again, throughout the days, throughout the weeks, depending on the class, if there's somebody that has a really good guard and I feel like I need to test myself where I can use this specific student to better push myself, then I'll roll with them, but that'll count towards my mat time. Does that make sense? So it's very important, like I said, for me, for people our age, in our 40s, you don't have to be on the mat every single day. There's other things that you can do.
You're one of those that, before going into a competition or a tournament, you have a game plan of what you're doing, like step by step, this is what I want, or you just go with the flow and we'll see what happens?
No, I think it's very important to have a game plan. I think that early on, you kind of have to be a little open towards those scrambles and those positions, just because you have a basic knowledge of jiu-jitsu. You have a basic idea of what to do from every single position, but it's very hard for you to say that you're going to control the match, the fight from a specific position. Does that make sense? But I think as a black belt, I've been doing it for over 22 years. I've gotten pretty good at getting the match to where I want to go. Does that make sense? So you have incredible competitors. You have a guy, for example, like Marcelo Garcia, that is going to get you in butterfly guards. And there's very little that you can do, right? You're going to end up in the butterfly guard regardless. You have a guy like Frangina Miller that you're going to end up in deep half, and that's his go-to. But people just get really good at directing the match towards where you're good at, where that you're going to be more effective. And I think, like I said, the more experienced guys, they definitely tend to have a game plan that they'll try to assert. So I'll have a game plan. Obviously, you don't have control over what your opponent is going to do, so it's very important to come in shape. I don't have a problem losing to somebody. I just will not lose to myself. And what I mean losing to myself is not being prepared. If I didn't do my job at being in shape, I'm not losing to the guy. I'm getting tired, and I'm going to lose to fatigue. I will not have that. So.
Now that you mentioned that you're not losing to yourself, comes in like being nervous at the time of right before the
right.
fight or the match. How do you control that?
You're always going to be nervous. Yeah, you're always going to be nervous. I think what you're trying to fight is anxiety. You don't have control over the outcome. You have control over your efforts. So focus on your effort, focus on what you're going to do, focus on your game plan. If you have a coach that is able to work with you in a game plan and says, okay, these are your takedowns that you're going to do for your match. This is the game plan that we're going to work on from guard. That kind of takes away some of the jitters, knowing that, okay, saying like, I'm just going to blindly walk into the match and see what happens. If you have a game plan, that takes part of a majority of it. The biggest thing that I feel people need to do is still in a page from professional athletes at the Olympic level. It's visualization, to see yourself in your match over and over again. Meaning, for me, it starts from see yourself walking to the gym, see yourself walking to the place. I've taken multiple competitors to big tournaments, and you can see their posture change from the second they walk into the arena, because it's crowded and there's so many people and everybody's in shape and everybody's walking around with their gear and their camp and stuff. So for me, it's very important that you start visualizing even walking into the place. By the time I go to compete, I've been in that room 1,000 times. By the time I go to compete, I've been in the warm-up room 1,000 times. By the time I go to compete, I've been in the bullpen 1,000 times, and I know what I'm going to do. I know the stretches I'm going to do, and I'm kind of like positive self-talking to myself, and by the time I'm on that line, standing before getting on the competition mat, I've been it 1,000 times. So nothing is new to me by the time I get there. And again, I'm not talking about being nervous. I think if anybody tells you they're not nervous, they're full of it. Everybody gets nervous. Everybody gets nervous. I think it's the anxiety of the outcome. And I think like I said, I think once you own the only thing that you're part of, which is you're only responsible. And the only thing that you're in control of is your performance. So once you realize that, you just focus on your performance. Whatever happens, match-wise, whatever happens, technique-wise, whatever happens with the referee, that's out of your control. You're just going to go out there and do your best.
You got last question. What's the best advice that you can give, or you will give to somebody that is like undecided? Do you really want to compete? Or I don't want to compete.
Yeah, it's really interesting because you'll have two people in the academy. You have the people that comes in and they just want to compete right away, and you have to kind of hold them back. People need to understand that people don't compete at the beginner level. People are competing midway through their belt, or they're competing as they're getting towards the end of the belt. So 6 months of constant training for the white belt, I think it's what's reasonable for those guys. Get in there, get 6 months, have an understanding of everything that's happened in jiu-jitsu, in your match-wise, meaning, do you understand points? Do you understand guards? Do you understand butterfly guard, close guard? Do you understand all these basic things? Then you can start competing. Does that make sense? But for the people that say that they don't compete, it's like we all compete in life. Does that make sense? It's just what we're afraid of. I think it's the judgment of telling others that we're about to compete, and then the very next thing is like, what did you win? Did you lose? Right? And I think that not everybody understands the learning process of competition. Does that make sense? There's a phrase that we tell kids, and it applies to adults. It's like you either win or you learn. Does that make sense? For me, like my very first match was as a 2-stripe white belt against a blue belt. And right before my match, my instructor tells me, watch out for his open guard. And I've never seen open guard, or I've never seen spider. So to me, that was such a defining experience and moment. It didn't. I ended up winning, but what I meant is that it defined who I became as a practitioner for the next 2 years, because his open guard was so incredible. I've never seen anything like that before. That when I came back to my academy as a white belt, all I wanted to do for the next 2 years was just open guard. So that's important. That's a beautiful thing of competition, is you start seeing other games, things that you haven't seen, not that your instructor hasn't shown to you, but your tenure hasn't allowed you to experience all those things. So it's fun. I want new competitors, I want them to put that idea of the shame of losing behind them. I think it comes from other American sports where being undefeated is a very important thing. Nobody's undefeated in Jiu-Jitsu. Nobody's undefeated in Jiu-Jitsu. And to be honest with you, nobody cares when you're a white belt. This is the learning belt. This is the belt where you're going to gather a lot of experience. This is a belt where you're going to work out some mental kinks. So just throw yourself out there. Nobody starts paying attention to you like a brown belt or a black belt, or like a really good purple belt at the national, international level. So just go out there, have fun. Don't hold yourself back just out of the fear of losing. Just go out there and perform, and there's nothing better than a local tournament to get those things. When it comes down to, I wish that in my early competition years that we had something, a local tournament where we could have started. The only thing that we had were tournaments. The only tournaments that we had were tournaments in Phoenix. So you're talking about the investment of, $100+ for the registration, the drive time, the food. Do you have kids? If you have kids, they're going to want to eat. So your entire experience for your first tournament, you're looking at $300 worth of investment. I wish that early back in the day we would have had something like a local tournament to start it, and that's why I think as a coach you start mentoring your students to jump into certain tournaments. So for sure, my first up competitors will be at the local tournament. And it's starting to learn what it's like to compete, get that experience out of the way.